for the last
Okay.
30 minutes.
Will you tell me
Hi,
about you?
this is Jean Flanagan, and welcome to Dead Air Live with Somerville Producers Group. And I'm very excited today because I have my special guest here is Ernestine Bear, and she's the pioneer of women's rowing in the United States. And I met Ernestine Bear for the first time when I was in an 8 and 84, and we got a gold medal, and she was inducted into the Rowing Hall of Fame as the first woman inductee, and then our 8 was the second group, and we were done in the same evening. And then Ernestine rowed with us in our 8 right after, the next day after that inductee. And Ernestine she started women's rowing. I mean, she really did. So we're going to tell stories tonight about rowing. So welcome, Ernestine. I'm so glad to have you here. It's so exciting.
I'm so glad to have been invited here. Thank you.
And that was the first time. That was the first time I met you, and I'd met you a few other times. But that was such a wonderful row that we had.
Well, I've never forgotten that row. I've mentioned it before, and I'd like to mention it again. It was the most wonderful row I ever had in my life. Now, I will say this, I have forgotten so many races that I had been in, but I've never forgotten that one. It was glorious. It was better than any 8 of men that I ever rowed with. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
It was probably one of the best boats I ever rowed in,
Yeah.
too.
And it was named, the name of the boat was the Princess Grace. And it was a brand new boat, and I'm trying to think of, anyway, from Festival Boat Club, they let us take the boat out.
That's right.
But I have never forgotten when we went upriver and we turned around and I raised my hand and the coxswain acknowledged me, and I said, can we take a 3 and a 10? Well, a 3 is a fast 3 and a 10 is followed by another fast 10. And she asked the crew, and the crew said yes, that was okay by her. So anyway, and okay by you. And anyway, we took the 3 and a 10, and the boat ran out, and I knew you girls weren't on full power. I knew that. So the boat ran out, and I raised my hand again.
Trying to be very careful.
Oh, I know. And I raised my hand again, and the coxswain acknowledged me. I said, now can we really take a 3 and a 10? Well, we took that 3 and a 10, and if there had been an 11th stroke, I would have been in the water. It was marvelous. And I say thank you again after all those years.
Most welcome. It was our honor to do that, to have you row in our boat with us.
Yeah.
And but rowing comes. I mean, I was in an 8 and 84, but the history goes back. I mean, that's sort of the beginning of international. 76 was the first time women raced in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of the beginning of the high end of international competition. So let's start all the way back to...
All the way back.
All the way back to...
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short.
No, don't try to make it short.
Okay.
We want to hear all of it.
Okay. My husband was a silver medalist in the 1928 Olympics in Amsterdam in a 4 without. And before he returned to Philadelphia, I better backtrack a little. We were married before he went to Amsterdam, and back in those days they felt that if a man was married, he lost his strength. So we kept it secret. So we didn't announce it until he returned from the Olympics. And I used to sit on the back porch of his club and watch the men row from the various clubs. And I said to him, why don't women row? He said, well, women don't row, and there's no place for women to row from. So I accepted that, and this one day I'm sitting on the porch waiting for him to coach, because I have to backtrack a little. We used to walk. He worked for one bank, and I worked for another bank in Philadelphia, and we would walk out the boathouse row, and after he finished coaching, we would walk back. That's where our car was parked. Mm. So anyway, I'm sitting there and watching him coach, take his crews upriver, and this one day, I saw this gal come out, step into a single, and row upriver, and my mouth dropped open. And on the way home, I said, you told me girls don't row, and there's no place row from? I said, well, I saw that gal go out in a single and row upriver. Oh, she's the girlfriend of the boyfriend, and it's his boat, and he lets her row it. I said, why can't I row a boat from this club? Well, we don't own a boat. Oh, I really believed it, and he was captain of the club. And so anyway, to make a long story short, there was an officer at the bank where I worked who was a member of the Philadelphia Skating Club and Humane Society, which was no longer being used for that purpose. They used to rescue people during the winter when the snow, the ice, and they had bought a new facility, or shall I say, started a new facility in Ardmore, a skating facility. So they no longer were using the house there, except for occasional members that would stop by and say hello.
Yeah,
And so anyway, I found out about it, and I said, well, do you think they would rent the house to us if I could get a group of girls together? So anyway, to make a long story short, I went to see the president of the club. He agreed to rent the clubhouse. And this other gal who worked in the bank with me, Gladys Hauser Luck, she's no longer living, she got this group of girls together from the boathouse next door, which was a Fairmount Boat Club. And we got together, and they all said yes, they'd like to row, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, when the men along Boathouse Row found out there were girls rowing on the river, all hell broke loose. All hell. Women had no right to row. And one member said to my husband, why do you permit your wife to row? Of course, that was back in 1938. Things have changed a lot since then. So that was the start of it, and we rowed, and we would row against ourselves. Occasionally we would have outside competition, but it was rare.
Yeah.
And that's the way it went on for years.
Yeah. The only other women's club that I know, and I don't know exactly when it started, was ZLAC, Z-L-A-C, out in San Diego.
I was going to say yes.
And they went out for Saturday tea parties. That was all they did. They all had their skirts on.
They were a great group.
Yeah,
great group,
but they were just, they were out to.
But we were the only ones on the East Coast.
They definitely weren't competitive.
Oh, no, there was one. It was a group of girls from a high school.
Wow.
And this goes back, way back. And of course, our equipment was borrowed. And it left a lot to be desired. So anyway, we got them a boat, and the boat they got wasn't any better than the boat we had.
Mm-hmm.
And we won, and they were very, very unhappy because they said we put them in a boat that wasn't
as good.
Yeah. But then that was it. And then there were two girls that came on from Midwest one time and rowed against Stella Sokolowska and myself, and we lost to that. And that was the only outside competition we had for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not. It's hard to keep going when there's not much outside competition.
I have forgotten so much. I mean,
Yeah.
talking with you, it makes me think back, but it's been a long career for me.
It's been a very long career.
And yeah, long career.
So, but you were into sports already.
I was
mean,
what?
you were into sports already. What about when you were little?
I'm sorry, I don't.
What were you doing when you were little?
What did I was doing when I was what?
When you were small.
Oh, I was a runner. I was an ice skater. I was a swimmer. I was known as a tomboy, and my mother was very unhappy with me because my mother, I mentioned this before, is the only woman I ever knew who changed her clothes twice a day. My mother was a lady. She was tiny, and she was not athletic, and she didn't want me to be athletic. It was different with my brother. She encouraged him. I wanted a bicycle, and I wasn't allowed to have a bicycle because it wasn't ladylike.
Mm.
And I wasn't allowed to do this because it wasn't ladylike. I was a tomboy, and I loved to keep my body in motion.
Yeah.
I guess that's about the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, so you had to work hard to keep your body in motion when it wasn't the proper thing to do.
It wasn't the proper thing to
Yeah.
do, not back then.
So, but you said you had told me that you swam in the summers.
Yes. out in the ocean, and one time I was arrested because I went out too far and I didn't come back when they whistled, so they came and got me and they put me in a lockup.
Oh no!
Yeah, because they said that was a bad, shall I say, that somebody, if I got away with it, they were afraid other people would try the same things.
Right.
Same things. So.
Now, did they let the men swim out that far?
Did they what?
Let men swim out that far?
I never noticed.
You never noticed.
never
They just
noticed.
didn't want you out that far.
I didn't care. I would just, I liked the ocean, I liked running, and I liked anything that was sport, roller skating.
Then did you have anything at school? Any sports that you did in
Yes,
school?
I played baseball. And also before baseball, I wish I could remember because that goes way back. That was in grammar school. And the team I was on, we were the city's championships, and I can't remember what that was called. They don't play it anymore. I don't know what kind of a game.
How was it laid out?
There were 1, 2, 3, there were 6 girls, and then at the very top, the idea was you would try to keep the other crew, or I won't say crew, the other group of girls from being able to get past you to the captain. And if they got through to the captain, then...
Like Capture the Flag would be played now,
I
maybe.
suppose. And each one of us had to guard a girl.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
But it was just you against another body. It wasn't...
Yes.
But you had to be
No, but there were
ladylike?
others. Me against another body, but there are 3 other bodies they had to get past too. But they didn't want you to get past the first one. They figured if they got past the first one, they could get past the second one.
It sounds like football.
Oh, I never played football. As I say, I was a runner, but my medal shows that. I was on a track team for Lou Spieler in Philadelphia.
So that's this medal here?
Yes.
Relay. Oh,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you brought a couple of different things for your...
Yes.
So
medals.
when I first went up to Philadelphia, my very first time I'd ever been in Philadelphia, I went up for the Dad Vales. I was in college, and it was the first year women rowed at the Dad Vales. So we went up, and there was this little old lady rowing on the river, and I'm like, well, I didn't know that old ladies rowed. I was 19.
Now you know.
Now I know. I was 19 at the time, and somebody was like, "Oh, that's Ernestine Bear," and I'm like, "Okay, who's Ernestine Bear?" I didn't actually. I didn't start rowing till I got to college down in Florida, so I didn't know any of the history of rowing.
Well, I was an old lady.
And you were an old lady. You already had white hair. That means you're an old lady, right? And so somebody told me, oh, that's Ernestine Bear, and she started women's rowing. I mean, even then, 25 years ago, you were already a legend in terms of starting women's rowing. And so they were like, yeah, that's Ernestine Bear of Ernie, Ernie, and Ernie. That's the way you were known.
The 3 bears.
The 3 bears. Yeah. So your husband was named Ernest.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been amusing to have both of you with the same name.
It was stupid. That's what it was. It was stupid. We should have never have named her Ernestine.
Yeah, so then you named your daughter Ernestine. But it made for a good joke anyway.
It did.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that she didn't row for too many years, but I was glad that she did row because she was the first girl who represented the United States abroad
Oh, that's
in
wonderful.
singles.
In singles.
And
yeah.
in singles, yes. Always, she loves singles. And I love singles too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the reasons why you could go out and you could do your own thing and you could sit. I remember one time coming back, the sun was going down and I sat there, I stopped rowing, and this is what I thought, what a wonderful way to die. But I did.
But you did.
But I did.
And that's
Thought,
what
what a
people that love
wonderful
what
way
they
to
do
die.
are
Yeah.
just ready to do that while they're, it
So.
sure beats getting run over by a car. So we're gonna transgress for a moment here and look at this lovely brace you have on your leg.
That was stupid. No,
And-
I think I should sue them because I did have the car unparked.
You put the
And
car
I
in
opened the door, the side door, because I'm a neatnik and we're building a house and there was along our private driveway, there was debris. And I was about ready to pick it up. And I opened the car door and had my left foot out. There it is.
There it is.
And the next thing I know, the car started to move and the car door smacked me and down I went.
Knocked you over.
And whatever made the car stop, because the wheel, the left front wheel was right in front of my leg. And I don't know what happened. So anyway, I call it that I had an accident with the car.
The car won, kind of, huh?
Beg pardon?
The car won, kind of.
It won. Yes, it did, and I lost. But I've heard that happen before to someone.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
So-
it was frightening. I was too dumb to be scared at the time, but I realized afterward how lucky I was. If that car, the wheel had gone over me, I'd have been killed.
So at 92, it's not your typical accident. I mean, you think
No, I
she
shouldn't be
broke her
driving.
leg.
Oh, yeah, I have a story to tell you about that. I had to take my driver's license, what was it, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was very upset about it because I knew when they saw the age of 92 that they might refuse. So anyway, I got in the car and the, what do you call her, the state, anyway, the person, the officer that goes along with you.
Oh, you had to take a new
I had to take
driver's
the test,
a road test
and
too.
they
yeah.
had me out in the country, and it was at a time when we had snowbanks, so she takes me down this narrow road, and there's snowbanks on the side, and it says 30 miles an hour. As I said, it was very narrow. If somebody had come the other way, it would have been, so I was being cautious. So I did everything she told me to do. I passed it. Guess what she faulted me on?
Too
I went
slow.
too slow, 30 mile an hour, too slow. I could have gone 30 miles an hour. Well, anyway, so I passed.
Good. We're glad because you know, I know that you credit rowing with keeping you so young.
Yeah. Oh, that one further thing. So the gal who took the test after I did, a young gal, she flunked her. I don't know what she did wrong. So I was lucky.
Well, we're going to go to a tape right now. We're going to have a tape that's going to show you some rowing.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, and
Yes.
and an interview with you and an interview with Ernestine too. With
Thank you.
Tina.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I like
so,
that.
So we're going to go to the tape now.
I think it got me to age 89. I hope it gets me past 90. I don't know. My husband was a silver medal Olympian in the 1928 Olympics in Amsterdam. And when he came back, he was always interested in rowing. He was always held a high position in rowing, and he was captain of his club. So he would take the crews out every night, so I would wait for him to do his coaching. So this one time, after 10 years, I saw this girl take out a boat from the club next door, which happened to be the Fairmount Rowing Club, and I was bug-eyed. So on the way home, I said, "You told me that women don't row." He said, "Women don't row." I said, "Well, who was that girl I saw in that single?" "Oh, she is the girlfriend of the boyfriend, and it's his boat, and she only rows occasionally." And I thought to myself, oh boy, if one person can row, I can row. Girls can row.
Through a colleague at work, Ernestine found an empty boathouse for rent and gathered a group of women interested in rowing. In 1938, the Philadelphia Girls Rowing Club was born.
Meantime, I don't know if I should use this word or not, but all hell broke loose on Boathouse Row. Philadelphia was a stronghold of rowing in the United States for many, many years. They produced more Olympians and more champions than any other club. And so anyway, when the men found out what I had done, there was an uproar.
Her entire attitude, her entire life has been, if she hit a problem, she looked at it and said, okay, what can I do to solve this problem? I'm not going to let it stop me. It's almost like hitting a wall. And a lot of people, when they hit a wall, turn around and go back the other way. She doesn't. She either looks to go over it, around it, under it, and given anything else failing, blow a hole in it. And she never gives up.
We did have races. We would borrow the boats from the boys' clubs, some of the boys' clubs, not all the clubs, but some of them who liked it.
For the next 30 years, women's rowing continued to improve. In 1967, Ernestine's crew edged out a men's team to win at a regatta in Canada. This caught the eye of a race official who convinced Ernestine to enter the European Championships in Vichy, France. And that proved to be the breakthrough for American women's rowing.
Tommy Keller, he was the head of rowing throughout the world. And he turned to us and he said, you girls have to come to Vichy. Well, Vichy that year was where all the races were being held in Europe. They came from France, England, all over. And I said to him, we've been refused.
In order to get a rowing crew admitted to international competition, you had to get the approval of the United States FISA representative. FISA is the International Committee for Rowing. And this gentleman refused. He said, I'm not permitting the American women to go. He said, they're not in the same class as the Russian women. And he said, I'll tell you a story. He said, when the Russian women row their 8, normally it takes 8 people to carry the boat. They don't have 8 people carry the boat. 4 girls carry the boat, and the other 4 girls carry the oars. He said, I've seen your girls carry the boat. It takes 12 of them to carry it. And Mother turned to him and said, yes, John, that's true. But she said, we're rowing borrowed equipment, so we're being very careful.
We had, I think, 3 weeks to get our things together. Meantime, I spoke to the girls. Some of them didn't want to go. They said that they weren't good enough to win. They didn't have the money. And I said to them, this is a chance of a lifetime. If you refuse this, you might never have the chance to compete again.
With what she did to get that women's boat to the Women's European Championships in Vichy in 1967, created a breakthrough for women's rowing in international competition. Prior to that, there had been several attempts to get women's rowing admitted to the Olympics for the summer events, and it was always voted down. When the women went to Vichy and raced in 1967, we didn't win. We were competitive. But the free world countries realized that with the United States coming, yes, women could be competitive. And when the vote came up for 1976 to expand the roster for the Summer Olympics, women's rowing was admitted.
Well, I'm very happy because even the kids are rowing now. They're getting youngsters out, which is wonderful. And as I said to you a little while ago, I think there's more women rowing than there are men. That gives me a big kick.
This was the Newfound Award to the Women's New England Sports Hall of Fame, where she was admitted for rowing. It shows that people have lit the way for others to follow. And to me, that is really the symbol of what she has done, that she's always been 50 years ahead of her time and leading the way for others. And she just didn't lead the way. She blazed the way. She made the trail so wide that other people could follow. And that's exactly what she's given to the sport. And it's marvelous. Mother loves to row so much, and Mother loves rowing so much, that if this is the particular time when something happens that she's going to row off into the other side of the world, then so be it. She's doing something she loves. As long as God leads me before he takes me, and my body doesn't give out, I intend to keep rowing. Maybe not racing, but I intend to keep rowing.
Thank you. Yeah,
That
I
was
forget
lovely.
all those things.
Yeah, that was lovely. That was lovely.
Oh, here we
and that
are.
was rowing, and that was you rowing in Squamscott, where you up on the river where you live.
Well, you'll have to come up and row on a Swampscott and stay overnight. You know, we have built we have,
God built.
yeah. Anyway, and right now it's a mess because it isn't finished. But when it is, I'd like to have you up and we'll go out for that double row and you stay overnight.
Okay, we can do that. I'll go out on the
I think
water.
you'd love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful up there. One of the reasons I don't actually row here, that Charles has so many rowers on it. It's so full of rowers. I coached at Riverside Boat Club for about 8 years, and I coached a lot of the singles, and
Well,
it's
I
got so
had-
many bodies on it.
I had the group of the girls up, when was it about, it was well over a year ago. And they slept overnight, and they slept in the living room on the floor. And we went out rowing, they rowed all over, and they loved it. I gave my single away.
Yeah, so you were just in an Alden shell now?
Yeah, because Tina did not want me out there by myself in the single, where it'd be pretty hard to fall out of the Alden single.
Right.
Unless you had a heart attack and you would go out. So I gave it to, oh, isn't that awful? As you get older, you sometimes forget. Gave it to Jeannie Friedman. She is the coach of Mount Holyoke.
Right.
And I gave her,
Right.
because she has been rowing with me at the head of the Charles.
Oh, good.
Yes.
So when was the last time you raced in the head of the Charles?
Last year?
Yeah.
Last year.
Good.
I did that. I didn't do that with Jeannie. I did it with. I'm trying to think of her name. Isn't that awful? Let's
But
see
you're
what
rowing
old
a
age I
double.
do.
You're still rowing a double in the head of the Charles?
Yes.
So you're still competing. You're out.
I'm
You're
still competing.
So you said that you gave up competing, and that's not really true. You really didn't give
Well,
up competing.
I'll put it this way. It's a different kind of competing. I don't have to win,
Yep.
but I try to do my best. I couldn't win anyway. I'm too old. But anyway, unless they get somebody else my age.
I know. How long do you have to wait for somebody your age to join you?
Yeah, I can't wait that long. But anyway.
So you got started. So Philadelphia Girls Rowing Club, like, got started, and you didn't have anybody to compete against.
No.
So then,
We were competing against ourselves, and it was very unhealthy.
and then you started. But you said you competed against men up in Montreal.
Yes.
Beat them. Did they all quit rowing after you beat them?
I don't ever remember beating them, to tell you the truth. I don't remember that. I'm sure we never did.
But you were racing up in Montreal when Tommy Keller
Yes.
told you to go to
Yes,
Vichy?
yes. I wasn't racing, but the boat was. I took the boat up there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no. I had known Tommy for several years prior to that. He was a wonderful person.
Yeah, he was. He
Yeah.
was still the president when I was
Yeah. But
rowing internationally.
he was all for women's rowing, where a good many men, even at that time, weren't for women's rowing.
Mhm.
And I feel certain that there is a good many men today would prefer not to see women rowing because they figure it's a man's sport.
Yeah.
It is, but it's also a woman's
It's
sport.
also a women's sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because men, what a lot of people don't know is that men's rowing was in the original Olympics in 1896.
Has it been then?
It was the very first Olympic Games included men's rowing. Modern Olympic Games included men's
Was that
rowing.
in the United States or was that in England?
That I don't. It was. I don't know where the first. I don't remember where the first Olympics were. If they were in Athens or if they were elsewhere. But the very first ones had men's rowing. So men's rowing has always been part of the Olympics, and it took us almost 80 years to get women's rowing into.
I know that the men had stake races.
Yeah.
And that they were held on the Schuylkill, and they rowed for money. But of course, that was even before my time.
Right, right. And that was all banned because you got to sit there in a single with your buddy going, hey, who's winning this race?
The
Yeah.
one I liked best was the picture that was shown with Jeanette, her name was Jeanette Hoover. She stroked and I was the bow. And that was the first race that was ever held on the Schuylkill for women. And we won it against
wonderful.
2 other crews from our own club. And that is the one I remember, and that's the one I love.
Yeah.
And we're still
Yeah.
friends today.
That's
A
wonderful.
long time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So-
that there's the first time women competed. I think that's
Yes, yes.
that's really
And,
wonderful.
All hell broke loose on that, too. But anyway, different day and a different time,
Yeah.
different age.
Yeah. So you never raced internationally then, but
No, I was
but
never given the opportunity.
Tina did.
No, but Tina did.
Tina did. Yeah.
Tina's, I think I mentioned this, was the first girl who ever represented the United States.
Mhm.
That was in
She-
Klagenfurt.
Klagenfurt.
Klagenfurt, yeah.
That's in.
Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah, that's great.
it's been fun.
Did she always race a single internationally? Did she ever race any other boats?
Yes, in doubles.
In doubles?
She rode in double.
Yeah.
And
So-
she rode in pairs. You know, I never rode in a pair.
You never rode
It's the
in a
only
pair?
boat I never rode in. Of course, she rode in 8s and she rode in 4s
Right.
and quads.
So
So-
tell us how you got her started rowing, because you told me she didn't really want to row.
She used to go out in the boathouse with us, wait while my husband was coaching crews from his club. I was also coaching and rowing from the girls' club. And she would come along, and I tried to get her on a boat, and she wasn't interested. So this one day, I put her in a workboat. I don't know how I happened to get her in there. And I figured that she was safe, that she couldn't fall out. And so she proceeded to row upriver. Now, she was around 18 at the time, 17 or 18, so she wasn't a kid. And so she went upriver, and she did what I always did. When I went up to the end of the course, I always put my feet, I straddled and put my feet in the water. And she sat there and watched the races and did the same thing that I used to do. Meantime, I'm scared to death because I don't know where she is, because when she started off, I claimed that I couldn't go with her because my leg was hurt. Of course, that was not true. I just wanted her to get up by herself. So she came back, and I think that's what started it all. She liked it.
And she liked it, so she
liked
kept
it,
rowing.
yeah.
So how many other women do you think you've conned into getting into a boat and keep rowing?
I don't think I conned anyone.
No?
I think, no, because
don't think
by
that you
that
can?
time, women were starting to like rowing. No, the only one I
great.
conned was my daughter.
Well, I did a little research because I thought you might like to know how many women are rowing right now.
I
So-
would like to know.
Well, this is not complete, but when I looked up at USA Rowing, there's 180 colleges that have women's rowing in it. And there's 7,500 college-age women rowing.
Do you think it's possible there's more women rowing than men?
I think so. Because when I looked at the list, there were more women's colleges listed in there than there were men's colleges.
That is marvelous.
Yep.
That is absolutely
And then there's more than that in the master's programs. Because, I mean, master's rowers are
well,
everywhere.
I've never been able to figure out why the men objected. I am the first one to admit that man is the stronger. And let them row their races and leave us row our races. We're not competing against men.
Right.
I wouldn't want to.
Right.
I'd be a nut.
Well, I actually did once. I was in a pair, and we raced in the head of the Schuylkill, the Frostbite Regatta that's
Yeah.
in November. And why they have a race that late in the season, I'll never know. But we went, we had just come back from the World Championships, and we went and raced. And they do the men and the women, they score them separately, but you all go down the race course together.
Who did you row with?
I was rowing with Liz Bradley
Oh,
in
okay.
the pair. And
And she was the granddaughter, you know, of John Carlin.
and she found that out after she started rowing.
And you know, he was against women's rowing at first, very much so. He didn't
Yeah.
think women should row.
And,
Anyway,
and
so
he
tell
was
me.
the director, and he was the director who wouldn't sign your papers when
Yes,
you wanted to send a team
yes,
to Europe.
yes.
Tommy Keller had to.
But they were a wonderful family. Mrs. Carlin was a wonderful person, and the daughters were very, very nice.
Yeah.
Very
So,
nice.
yeah, so Liz started rowing at MIT, and then she got invited to try out for the Olympics in '84, and then she and I rowed a pair, and we beat one of the men's pairs in that long race, and the two guys quit rowing. At last I heard.
Who were they? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I didn't know they were.
And they quit.
They quit. They were college rowers, and we felt like, well, you know, we're world-class rowers, and you're college rowers, so, and we also outweighed them. I mean, Liz is bigger than I am, so the two of us outweighed these poor two guys in this.
I never heard that one before. I'll have to repeat that. That is
Yeah. So
too. But oh, it's a wonder they didn't kill themselves.
I know they like wouldn't talk to us after that. That's for sure. But it was great.
Yeah.
It was good. So indoor rowing. So you do some rowing on ergometers now.
I do the erg,
Yeah.
and I hold the record for my age group. Yeah,
Yeah.
for doing the erg.
But you
I
hold
hate
your
that thing.
But I know, don't we all? That's why they start these races, right? That's why they have these rowing races, because we spend 2 months of our winter
I
indoors.
hate it, but I love it.
I know, you got to do it. What
I
else?
hate it,
What are you going to do?
But I love what it does for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Horrible. You know, those who have never used it, they have no idea how torturous it can be.
I know, it can be really terrible. So I actually have some videotape of you rowing at the Crashby Sprints.
You do?
I do. I took some. I had a client that went to Crashby Sprints, and I was filming her rowing, and there you were, and I had to catch a little bit of footage.
Things that I don't know about.
Oh yeah, you're just a famous personage, so we all like. Oh,
I
that's
just did
Ernestine.
I was an athlete, and I like to stay an athlete, and that's about it. I like to
Yeah.
keep my body in motion.
Right.
And maybe I would be dead by now if I hadn't.
And it's just, you're just a real model of keeping your body in motion.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that we all should do as
Let's hope
well
you
as
keep
you.
on doing it.
I know. I found some other ways though. I ride my bicycle and I take Tai Chi. I do
Yeah.
Tai Chi.
You don't have to row, but you have to
Yeah.
keep active.
You have to keep
Yes, I
active.
used to cycle. That was years ago too. But that was after I was married because my mother wouldn't let me have a bicycle while I was single. My mother was a lady. My mother cooked beautifully, played the piano beautifully. She was little, blue eyes. She was a beautiful woman, but she
But didn't want you doing any of
No,
that
didn't
stuff.
want me- she wanted me to be a lady. She was born in 1870, so it was a different, well, just
A
like
different world.
today. I can't get over the way women act today. When I see what they wear at the Academy Awards, I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of my own sex.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a different day.
We see so much of that in the media,
Yeah.
and not enough of people like you, who are just out there moving your body and rowing and doing something that you love to do. So we're going to go to this tape and that shows you rowing at the Crashby Sprints. So,
Great.
so the Crashby Sprints, for people that don't know, the Crashby Sprints are held in February, and like the 21st of February or something, after we've been off the water since November, and we've been rowing all of the end of November and all of December and all of January and all of February indoors. And we used to line all the ergs up and crank the tapes and crank the music, and everybody brought one, and we had to do 2-hour erg pieces when I was training for national team, 2 hours of, so there'd be 20 of us sitting in the room making all this noise. So we're going to show the Crashby Sprints, which actually got started here in Boston.
Okay.
So the Crashby is the Charles River All-Star Has-Beens. Those are why it's got named the Crashby Sprints. And it was up. I was at one of the first ones. It was started right around when I was a national team rower, because that's when the concept two ergometers got invented. So we're gonna show the tape now.
The gentleman should have one here.
I didn't bring one with me. Or we might have to demonstrate rowing, and I decided
no.
maybe we didn't need to do
You,
that.
not me.
Okay, here's the tape.
In the green bank, Ernestine is rowing steadily at about a 250, 255 split. Well, of course, she's doing her personal best, or after her personal best every time is the world best. Let's give Ernestine some support down there in the green bank. She's given those competitors on either side 40 years. Let's urge her on.
In the red bank, lane 1, lane 2, a dead heat. Paul Hendershot and Rob Slocum. They're 6 years apart. They're both 50 and 59 heavyweight. Awesome race.
And you have better rowing technique than all the other people that were around you in that.
That's very
in that
kind of you to
piece.
say, but they all beat me.
But they were also.
They were, no, I'll put it this way, I was the best in my class. But I couldn't keep up with those young girls. I wouldn't, nor would I even try.
And nobody expects you to, actually.
That's true.
But you do row beautifully, and
You really, you're not just saying that, are you?
no, I think you do. I think you
Okay.
do. You have a very smooth. You can tell how many years you've been rowing. It's obvious
thank you.
that you've been just out there on the water for a long time, and you can't help but.
Sometimes in the water.
Yeah. So, Anita DeFrance said hi through
When
email.
you see her, you tell her I said hi.
I will.
Yeah.
And her question she had for you was, have you ever been able to verbalize what it feels like to be on the water rowing?
I've ever been able to verbalize
that sensation of being on the water rowing.
serenity.
Serenity. Oh, that's a good word.
You do. You do.
Yeah.
Haven't you felt that?
I have.
Serenity, yeah.
Yeah.
When I told you the story about coming back and the sun was setting and I thought, oh, it would be a good time to die. I was in the single. It was wonderful. You have, those who don't row think we're crazy. You know that.
I know that.
No, but it's, I don't think I would have attained this age if I hadn't rowed. I don't think I would. Because my husband quit. When he came back from the Olympics, he quit.
He just coached
But
and didn't
wouldn't
continue rowing.
exercise.
Uh-huh.
He should have. Because he was 6'3". He was a big guy.
Wow, he was.
Yeah. But then he wouldn't use the ergometer, and he wouldn't walk. He wouldn't. But anyway.
So you sort of battled through all of that. So have you been able to get on the water since you hurt your leg?
No.
No.
I don't know. I
So
go to
you're
the
waiting.
doctor tomorrow. I go to a place, it's called the sport something or other. Anyway, they just handle people who have accidents with sports.
Right.
And whether he's going to leave me take that off, it's still swollen, I don't know.
Right.
But I hopefully he'll let me exercise.
Yeah.
but it's very awkward even walking.
I know.
It's in the.
But then, but the season's here, so it's time for you to get on the water and get. The season is here.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and the water's right there.
The water's right there.
Oh, and where we live, we have all the animals. We saw a deer this morning.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
See, it's right on the Swampscott. It's the river that Exeter Academy uses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I tried to get Liz O'Leary she wanted to come and do this, but Women's Nationals were this past weekend down in Atlanta. They were down at
You mean it will be held this weekend?
this past weekend.
Oh,
They just finished.
And how they do?
I don't know how they did, so
Where
we'll
did they
have to
row?
go find out. Down at on the Olympic course from '96,
Okay, all right.
like
I've raced in
the one right
Miami,
outside
but
of
I don't think
Atlanta.
it's-
No, this was the new course. It was a brand new course they put in for '96, and so they
Oh, I do
raced.
have a funny story to tell you. I raced in Miami some years ago. It's when the Russians came on. It was an international affair. And anyway, I had this, I said I would row the double with Harold Finnegan. Did you ever hear of him? For years, he held the titles. No one could beat him in a quarter-mile dash. But he had a very, very high stroke. And I said to Harold, I said, I can't follow you if you have a high stroke. I said, I just can't do it. I said, please keep your stroke down. Well, we got into the race. I never rode so fast in all my life, and I almost fell in the water, but we won.
But you
Harold,
won,
did you ever hear of him? He was a very well-known oarsman, Harold Felinkin.
No, I didn't.
Harold's in his late 80s,
Was he from Philadelphia?
Philadelphia. Yeah, he belongs to the Vesper Boat Club. Harold Finnegan.
Where all the women from '76 joined Vesper Boat Club.
They did?
Yeah, that was how I got to be a national team rower. Was I was rowing down in Florida for Florida Institute of Technology. We had this little teeny tiny program. We had 12 women, and we begged the last 2 women to stay on the team so we'd have a full boat. And Vesper women were coming down for one of our early spring races because we could race down there in February. And the Vesper women, which had all the women from the 1976 team, and it was
won?
1978. Well, what we did was we said there was no way our team was going to win, so we put together a boat called the Florida All-Stars. And so all the women, the coaches of the 4 women's rowing clubs in Florida all got together and picked all the different teams, picked out all the women and from the different clubs, and we got together and we raced. We rowed 2 weekends and trained together.
Does Anita still row?
I don't know if she rows. She's out in L.A. right now, and I don't.
She was a beautiful oarswoman.
She was. She
Yeah.
was. And Anita was in that boat,
Ah.
and they came down, and one of the women, which was not Anita because Anita would never do this, but one of the women stood up at the boat meeting the night before the races, and we heard about it, and said, well, we'll just take our gold medals now.
Oh boy.
Oh boy! So we had these tourist T-shirts that we'd gotten together with the big orange on it, the huge orange just on it, with the said Florida on the bottom of them. That's what we raced in, and Vespers in their big V's, and we were so us little innocents. We walk up and we're like, well, don't you think that, you want to bet shirts? And we like, and they're like, well, we can go buy those shirts, so why would we want to bet shirts? And we knew that we had one chance. The start was the only chance we had, and we beat them.
Did they kill themselves?
Well, Anita, of course, was totally gracious about it and just enjoyed the fact that these women from nowhere went out and we rode our little hearts out.
Well,
and from that, we got invited up to College Boat Club. And that whole boat went up, and then we all got splintered apart with all the other people. The women from small colleges all went up and that's what College Boat Club was about. We rode out of the UPenn boathouse.
Oh, how things have changed.
And then I went to nationals and raced in a 4 in nationals. And next thing I knew, I was out in Essen racing against the Belgian women going, what am I doing here? And that, you know, and it's just so different. And it's different even now from when I was
Well, I can
rowing.
appreciate, if I never rode, I wouldn't be able to appreciate all that. But since I rode, I can appreciate it, what the other people go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you go
Yeah.
through or what you want to do and when.
And
I think it's a marvelous sport. I don't understand why more women don't take it up.
Well, a lot of women do. I started as a swimmer and took up rowing when I got to college. And you know, you can still start rowing when you get to college. You don't have to row when you're 6 years old like soccer players have to play early.
You and Holly, are you the only two from the 8 that has continued rowing?
No, Kathy Keeler still rows. And actually a lot of women from the
Kathy
80s.
Keeler does. Where, is she from Boston?
Yeah, she coaches and she does a little bit of
she
rowing.
does?
She does fair amount of coaching. And yeah, and there's some other women that have.
That
A lot
80
of them went off and had babies and got married and had
Yeah.
babies. So they sort of moved on with their lives.
You'll never,
But-
never know what that 8, your 8, the most beautiful boat I ever rode in my life. It seemed like it was flying. It was so smooth. Oh, you were
It was a
smooth.
boat.
You were so smooth.
Yeah.
I can still see it.
Yeah. We rode part of that boat with some of the men in a mixed 8. And we were amazed at how rough the men row. We were like, oh my God, like, can they row? But they were so much power behind it. So between the two of us rowing in that 8 and then the women that knew how to row smoothly and the men that just had this raw power, I mean, that boat was pretty incredible to
I
race
think
in
you're
the
as
head of the
nutty as
Charles.
I am.
Yeah, I am.
I mean, when it comes to rowing. Oh,
Yeah.
that's marvelous.
So it's great fun. So we have
I
a
hope that-
special treat. We have a special treat for you. It's coming in.
Now, what do we have
What do we?
here?
This is a little thank you because I think that we have to say thank you for.
Isn't that beautiful?
So I made a cake with a little single
Did you
sculler
make
on
this?
it for you. I did. So we'll see if we can eat it.
How did you ever get the orange person on there?
I had to
that is
paint it on.
beautiful.
But I just think that what you've done for women's
Am I
rowing.
supposed to eat it here? Oh.
So there it is.
Oh.
I decided I wouldn't do the white hair. I figured I'd do a young Ernestine Bear rowing. And all the women that row, we're all very grateful to you for all that you've done.
No, thank you so much. Mwah, for inviting me. Thank you.
It's great.
I've enjoyed it.
Good.
I've
So
enjoyed
have
it.
I.
But it's an old story, and
And it has to be told. It has to be told over and over again because lots of new people haven't ever heard it. New
it's-
people keep coming into rowing and they haven't heard that story before.
Yeah. But
Or all
it's-
those stories.
To me, it's so wonderful to see women coming into a sport that was strictly for men and what they have done. I think there's more women rowing today than there are men. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
I don't think you are wrong.
Yeah. And
I don't
that
think so.
makes me,
Yeah.
how should I put it? I've said this before and I'll say it again. A strong oarsman is better than a strong oarswoman every time. That is the best.
Yep.
And no way all my life would I ever think of competing against a man. I'd be a nut.
Right.
And that's the way I feel. No, I give them the honor that is due them. But at the same token, that I feel that they should give women the honor that's due to them for coming into a sport that they knew nothing about years ago.
Right.
And because when did rowing start? Back in the early 1800s.
Yeah, rowing's very old.
very
it's
old.
very old.
And so, anyway.
So they've got 100 years without us, and then we get the next 100 years, right?
So what I was saying, no way would I ever want to compete against a man at any age. I'd be a nut.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just, you know, for the most part, we're not as big as them, and we don't have as
No,
much
but
muscle
I
as
tried
them.
to explain that to a lot of people, that
Yeah.
no way the
That's
women
not, that wasn't your object when you
yes, and
started
it's
rowing.
not the object of most women.
It's not.
No.
It's not. They just want to be able to go out
Yep, and do their
and
thing.
row and do their
Yep.
thing. Have a good time. And it's beautiful out there. I grew up on the water, and that
Were
was
you
what
ever
I
out
really
there when
took.
it's lightning?
Yeah, I've been out there when it's lightning.
So far, I've been scared to death.
I know. I've also been in the launch coaching when it's been lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the one with the electric power to track the lightning. And yeah, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. We had a 4 flip over, and they had to come and pull everybody out before the shoes would release. You know, we had one rower who got stuck under the boat, and we had to dig her out and drag her out. But you know, and everybody's got sort of swamping boat stories, and
Yeah.
you know, so you get wet at some point. You definitely get
Anyway,
wet.
thank you so much for inviting me. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
No, it's
Thank
a
you for
pleasure.
coming.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you very much. It's been great fun to have you, and to have everybody come and listen to Ernestine Bear and I tell stories, war stories, so to speak, regarding rowing. So we hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.